Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Dylan Frendo. We'll be discussing his fantastic book, Scarlet Warfare, Hope and Fearlessness, available for purchase through Amazon.com. And guys, Dylan was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by some of the best movers in the business, author Reputation Press Publishing. So if you have a book that you'd like moved, do yourself a favor and contact ARP. And you can find out more information on them at authorreputationpress.com. So without further ado, let's jump right in because Dylan is the expert, okay? He's going to be able to articulate everything much better than I ever could. Dylan, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you so much for being a guest. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing good.
Well, Dylan, we're very much looking forward to this, and I know we have so much information to cover. But before we go into the book, let's hold off slightly. Start by telling our listening audience a little bit more about yourself and your background, please.
I have a pretty good passion for writing books and novels, particularly this series. It started off as a hobby, but it's one of the things I like to do the most out of really any day. So I have fun doing it. But other than that, I got about a standard background, standard job. As far as my background, most of it's just like my presence is pretty much just writing. I do it all the time. I have a lot of potential projects that I haven't even touched yet. Some things I have done that I've never actually published. Some things I haven't published or haven't written. My general interest is actually more into sci-fi, and sometimes I'll go for anything as long as there's a genuine deep character development into plots. For the Lee Ray series, though, I've mainly just chosen magic fantasy because it was easier for me to make it a more fun experience to do that.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. And Dylan, without further ado, Scarlet Warfare, Hope and Fearlessness. Tell us a little bit more about your book.
Well, Scarlet Warfare as a whole is actually 3 books, number 13 to 15. And Scarlet Warfare itself is actually a continuation from the story known as Infinite Misconception. In Infinite Misconception, the point of view is shifted off from the previous main characters of Jane, Danny, and Taylor and placed back onto the entire League of Elites in the tower that runs Sprawn Valley's governing defenses. The thing about Rash Danton, who is the leader of this, and his personal friends, is that they too are just people trying to find a name for themselves in this world of magic. Infinite Misconception basically reverts to the moments of Danton's regrettable past as he unmistakably bears the responsibility from then to what is going on in the present day of the story, which would continue into Scarlet Warfare. There's a organization in the series called the Scarlet Syndicate, and they're a well-known 10-year-old criminal organization running in Sprawn Valley that operates in the shadows. And they're specifically focused on recruiting people who are not afraid to use and test dark magic for any purpose. Dark magic, in this sense, is considered illegal because of its ability to reject the protection properties of the veil of Lee Ray magic, which means it can easily kill others. Lee Ray magic itself, which is enabled by this governing tower, is supposed to be safe to use, so people can conduct all the battles and fun that they want to do without actually hurting each other too badly. Whereas dark magic is kind of the opposite of that. You get hurt basically on purpose. You get hit by dark magic, you're taking some serious damage, the kind that can kill you very easily, which is why dark magic was outlawed. The problem, of course, is that the Scarlet Syndicate, who have been quiet and underestimated for 10 long years, has suddenly gone loud and active, executing a well-thought-out plan to derail the seats of power in Spawn Valley and install their own magic veil, one that would follow their chaotic rules as they see fit, and to take over the entire country in such a short amount of time. So, Danton has no choice but to go to war against the Scarlets using every asset at his disposal, including the assistance of Jane and the tool that the Scarlets mistakenly lost to her in the process. And that's why it's named Scarlet Warfare.
Thank you very much for all of that information. The next concept I want to go into is inspiration. Now, multi-part question here, but first and foremost, let's start really at the origin of this, because we know, as we've discussed already, and as you've brought up multiple times, this is a series of books, right? So there's a number of other novels underneath. So before we get into what inspired you to write this narrative, Scarlet Warfare, talk to us about this series of books and really just writing in general. Have you always been interested in writing? Were there artists that inspired you? What inspired you to embark upon a creative journey and become a writer?
Well, the Lyrae series as a whole begins from the book known as Lyrae World, subtitled The Secrets of Lyrae Magic and Battles, which starts the main characters off by getting together, and they're outsiders of Spawn Valley, two of them, learning about Lyrae magic for the very first time in their lives, so it's kind of been a kept secret. And Spawn Valley is actually the only country in the world in the series that people can go to use magic in the first place, so it's not like you can go to any other country and do it. So the series starts off following more closely behind the point of view of Jane Venn, the young but proud wielder who is advanced for her current age and follows her own goal to become a Lyrae master. But as a result of galactic scale bad luck, Jane winds up sinking into the clutches of a devious plot slowly executing within Spawn Valley, involving criminals of magic and, of course, the underestimated Scarlet Cult. So her goal of becoming a Lyrae master is pretty much put on hold. She's got to take care of bigger problems that first involve herself. But she can't do it alone. Annie and Taylor develop their own powers to assist her in any way that they can, despite what problems that getting sidetracked will cause for them. This then plays out in the Dawn of a Sage book, and then eventually that gets back into Infinite Misconception. Mm-hmm. As far as inspiration, I actually began writing since a very long time ago. I was more or less, and I've always been sort of inspired to write, but I wasn't really aware that I had writing talents until like the fifth grade. And so from there, I've just been writing short stories, and then those got longer and longer and longer as I went on. But I never really created anything worth publishing until the Lyrae series became a project. The idea behind the whole magic system popped into my head spontaneously while working on a short story variant that would have been Dawn of a Sage. So I realized how much more potential the story had if it had an original and unique magic system that was implemented, and as well as how much fun it would have been to take the approach of designing 200 unique spells with their own defined stats, as well as fun of world building. So it became sort of this moment where I wasn't really designing a plot by itself. I was designing something that felt more like a video game, so to say. Because I started the approach from the spells, the stats of each spell, the world. I looked at it as if it were one huge video game design, and that actually made it a lot of fun for me. And it's what kept me going for a long time into the development of the project. And then, of course, I had excellent playlists of, music for all kinds of scenes that were helpful in the development. For action scenes, fast-paced battle music, magic-themed music, all kinds of stuff like that.
Again, here in the line with Dylan Frendo, we're discussing his fantastic book, Scarlet Warfare, Hope and Fearlessness, available for purchase through Amazon.com. Dylan, next question that I'd love to go into. Talk to us about the research that was conducted. Now, clearly, this is a fictional narrative, and this series of books are all fictional narratives. So I know a fair portion of it will be coming from your imagination and things that you create. But even fictional narratives sometimes are steeped in reality, or at least have some type of research that is conducted in preparing for it. So talk to us a little bit about some of that research that you conducted.
Well, it's like you said, most of the story, especially from the beginning, was inspired through a collection of everything I've ever absorbed. And I kept the idea as original as possible, using my imagination to come up with all of the stuff, the plot and everything else. But eventually I got to a point right around the near end of Infinite Misconception and further on, researching just a lot of little things, like the details of specific locations of the United States, because that's one of the settings that they're eventually taken to. And then later on, I want to say beyond Scarlet Warfare, because the next two books had this more involved, I had to do a lot more research into military protocols, mostly, because it involves things like the United States Air Force and the Navy. And as far as the book's action scenes go, we start to see a slow, gradual push from that fun magic battle system to intense action and fighting, and eventually the use of real weapons and real danger that you would see associated with highly trained military operatives.
Dylan, I'm curious, what would you say was a highlight for you? Now, not just a highlight with writing this book, Scarlet Warfare, but there's been 17 books completed so far, with more to come. Out of this entire process, what would you say was a highlight for you? If not a highlight, maybe something that surprised you that you weren't expecting before you began this journey?
There were a few things. One of the many things that was a nice highlight was that I realized somewhere in the middle of this that it's actually it's a good feeling, a really fun feeling when you're working on a story and you've originally had this sort of background script, or a lot of people call it different things, brainstorming notes and stuff like that. You kind of stick to keep the plot in line, but a lot of times I had to totally just shift everything away from that and throw something completely random or unexpected, and unexpected to me, that is. Mm-hmm. And it ended up making the story a lot more richer than I thought it would. First it felt like a mistake, then I realized it worked, and I kept doing it, and it made things better and better. It brought more balance to the book series overall.
Absolutely.
And then another nice surprise was, like I said, a lot of music went into part of the inspiration of how I would write my chapters. And so there was sort of this background personal quest of me finding just the right music for just the right chapters and moments and stuff. And it really makes it feel stronger when I'm writing these chapters. It makes it feel like I'm actually there when everything comes together. And I imagine all these things happening around me at once. It's like I'm there. And it made the development of these stories a lot more fun.
Dylan, of course, magic is something that is very common, right? And has definitely been put to the forefront of pop culture and society. So this is something a lot of people are familiar with, or at least recognize. Now, I'm curious, within the series of books, what makes the magic system of the Lee Ray series unique?
Well, what makes it unique is there's a lot of things, really. It's referred to as Lee Ray magic because it was founded in early history by Lysander Lee Ray, who built this off of a pure but unstable variation of lunar magic, or specifically reflected light from the moon, which was discovered by Aegis Fardran. And it becomes a fundamental part of Sprone Valley because of its location. The magic is available only through a massive magical veil that spans over the entire continent of Sprone Valley, sourced from one of the largest and most advanced human technological structures in that area, which is known as Eldora Tower, running with a crystal core. So because of this, and because of the implementation of the veil, special rules and protocols were applied to it so that everyone within the confines of the country of Sprone Valley and only Spawn Valley, have the ability to cast magical spells, most of which are destructive in nature. It gives people access to their magical circuits. For those who are in Spawn Valley, they can learn to use magic to access countless types of spells and variations in multiple elements and factors. But the most interesting part of this is that while it grants people magic, it simultaneously protects all organic creatures from physical damage of many varieties, mainly deriving from magic itself. So this made it possible early on to host popular events that are called Leroy battles, where magical combat can be exchanged without the risk to one's life, and it becomes a very fun sport in the entire continent. Although more natural causes of death can still occur, like sickness and age, stuff like that. So because of Leroy magic, Spawn Valley has become the center of attention for this world to those who find the idea of Leroy magic fascinating. But for many reasons of the distant past, half of the world despises and fears Leroy magic without an individual understanding of why for most of them. But even more distressing is the potential to break the sacred rules of the Veil's protection system with a variant of magic known as dark magic, which is similar to Leroy magic, but it rejects the Veil's protective mechanisms to cause real-time damage, making it illegal to use.
As we start to tie out of this fantastic interview, Dylan, listen, I'd be doing my listening audience a severe disservice if I didn't ask this next question. I love having this platform, being an artist myself. And I'm in a different medium. I'm an actor and a filmmaker based here in Los Angeles, but I love having this platform to be able to pay it forward, in a sense, to other artists out there listening in. Now, you are someone that, again, the feat that you've accomplished so far is absolutely incredible. I mean, you've written and published 17 books. That's more than most people do in a lifetime, but that's just what we have so far. As I said, guys, there's more on the horizon, okay? So make sure you're checking back into his Amazon page frequently to get the rest of them the moment that they're completed. Now, I want to take this opportunity, Dylan, for any new writers out there listening in, what words of wisdom would you be able to relate to them?
I would say that persistence is really one of the important aspects of writing, because if you've never actually published something before, I see a lot of writers give up pretty quickly. Not permanently, but they sort of put the book on hold. They wait it out for so long, and then you sort of, how do I say this, you sort of lose the passion to continue working on it. Because if you don't have that passion to begin with, it's no fun to work on a book. It doesn't feel like you're doing something fun. It feels more like a job.
Mm-hmm.
And so being persistent is pretty important with stuff like that. But it's also important just as well to know when you need to take a break from it all and step back just for a little while. You know, enjoy the life that's around you, because you can't always stay absorbed in your book 24/7. It's not healthy for the book development or for you.
Absolutely.
And I had to learn that the hard way a couple times.
I love that advice, Dylan. I absolutely love it. Guys, persistence, I mean, listen, that's great advice for anybody, any position you have in life. Persistence is always going to really be something that you're going to need to get to that next level, literally, right? You need to have the persistence, because listen, there's always obstacles in your way. There'll always be something that can intercede and disrupt your path. So that persistence is so, so valuable and so important. And of course, making sure that you're taking a break. I mean, guys, we know all work and no fun, it'll burn you out very quickly, right? So making sure that you're taking those periodic breaks is really going to help go the extra distance, help go that extra mile. I absolutely love it. Guys, you know what I love even more, though, is we're at the end of the interview now, and we've discussed so much information, yet we've barely scratched the surface. I mean, there's still so much left to discuss, and we've only discussed one book. There's another 16 of them at this moment, more to come after that. So I'm going to say it one more time, even though I know I don't have to. Here in the line with Dylan Frendo, We just finished discussing his fantastic book, Scarlet Warfare, Hope and Fearlessness, available for purchase through Amazon.com. And guys, remember, there's 16 others in the series as of right now that are available for purchase, but check back into his page frequently to get the rest of them once they're completed. You surely will not be disappointed. Dylan, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you once again for being a guest with us today on People of Distinction.
Of course. And if anyone wants to learn more information about the series itself, any specific details or overall background details, you can also check out my page at World Anvil. It's a world building site that's kind of catered and designed to these sort of books. You can almost look at it like bonus content for the whole series. You can learn a lot about it. You just go to World Anvil and type in Sprawn Valley or Lysander Works. Should take you straight to the homepage of it. And like I said, you can learn anything that's related to the books and that. And as we only scratch the surface, that would contain a lot of information that would be fun to learn even before reading any of the books. So if you want to know a lot more about it before you make a decision to go and check it out, that would be a good start.